that's important. I would agree. I think 5-on-5, we did a lot of good things tonight. Special teams need to be better. I thought Gus gave us a chance to win. It was, the difference in the game was, the special teams. That's what it basically comes down to.
Heinze, after last night's Game 2 setback, Wild come back home down 0-2 to the heavily favored Colorado Avalanche. Russo Radio, of course, was there, and he's kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I'm going to try at the start here to offer a proposition to you. I on the basis of what you wrote, I sense you believe the goaltending should be higher up than Heinze suggests, at least publicly. But I'm here to tell you.
Let
me finish the point. I think it's both.
Yep.
I think it's. I came away because I don't think as much the goaltending is a story we have to continue to explore. I don't think the special teams thing, you've been writing about it forever. I just don't think it can be ignored any longer. Injuries or not, it's going to catch up with you, right? Eventually, and right now, in terms of, are we still waiting for our first power? I know we got a shorthanded goal in this series, but we're still waiting for our first power play goal, correct?
Yeah, correct. I completely agree with you on the special teams. Frankly, I'm fatigued about it. I mean, we've been writing about it for years.
Yes.
Literally. And it just never gets better. And look, it somehow didn't kill them last round because they did such a good job at even strength and 5-on-5 especially. But this is a different animal in Colorado. And what's concerning about here is that Colorado's power play has been really bad all year long, last couple years, and in the first round, and they've just absolutely made mincemeat out of the Wild's PK, and it's really baffling that it just never seems to get better, and I don't think they're getting out of the series if they don't figure out a way to fix this on home ice here. So their penalty kill in the playoffs is below 60%. That's embarrassing. Their power play just keeps getting worse and worse. It's running at below 10% here the last half dozen games or so, and it's a huge issue. The goaltending story today was just based on a decision that I think that you and I talked about yesterday. Yes. Where it was either yesterday or a couple days ago that we both. Yeah, I don't think that we both agreed that they should make the move. And if you were going to make the move, at least throw Gustafsson into game one to get him some work. And the reason why, to me, it was a perplexing decision yesterday. And look, I think win or lose, I think John Heinze was almost telegraphing in the morning skate that they were coming back with Wallstedt in game 3 no matter what. And that this was just getting him a mental and physical reset. And hey, look, I get it. Wally did not perform well in game 1 at all. But to me, to then throw, it doesn't matter how good Philip Gustafsson is, to then throw him into a game 1 for him of the playoffs, first time in 3 weeks against a riding high Colorado Avalanche team. I just didn't think there was going to be a way that he was going to steal that game. And then when the winning goal was as bad as it is, to me, it became the issue.
Yeah. It was a bad goal.
Probably, and to your point, I mean, it probably is because we're just tired of writing about the special teams. Last night during the game, so there's 3 of us covering it for the Athletics, and I'm sort of at the controls of doing the takeaways. And our Rangers writer, who's covering the Avalanche this series, is like, should we do something on the Wild special teams? I'm like, no, I cannot do another special teams takeaway. I just cannot, even though it was completely. But I remember the way that Joe Smith and I said it to him is like, what we'll do is we'll tweak it into other takeaways, because we just cannot do another special teams takeaway. You know what I mean?
Left.
So it is all in the takeaways. We just filtered it into different areas.
Is there anything radical that is even among the possibilities for Heinze to do for game 3, or is that too dangerous a way to look at it? Is that the kind of thing that you're panicking and you're not giving whatever chance you have to get back in the series, you're not giving your team a chance to do it? Is there a lineup mix-up that could shock the world? Is there something? I'm talking now more about the special team stuff to just to just try something different? Is there anything radical that could be attempted?
No, I mean, look, they've been trying to fix this for a long time. The second half of the season, the Wild were really good on the power play. In fact, they finished the NHL third on the power play. Their penalty kill was much, much better the second half of the season. And I don't know what radical things you could change right now, systems, things like that. I think what you got to do is just look at whatever, from a layman's standpoint, they've got to look at whatever they're seeing on tape that Colorado is taking advantage of and figure it out. They're letting him into the zone really easy. They're just not executing. When Michael McCarron said after the game last night that from the bench he's seeing plays developing that they're not reading fast enough. I mean, that's an indictment of the personnel, not so much the system involved. I mean, remember John Hines is the guy that brought the same system over to Milan, and the personnel there were perfect, 18 for 18. So this is a personnel issue. I mean, that first Gabriel Landeskog goal is just terrible execution on Jake Middleton's part. You got to lead with your stick. And as a former Wild player texted me, he goes, the way that he slid was just not the right way to slide there, that he left just too many holes for McKinnon to get that puck through. And then unfortunately at that point, Landeskog is just right in front of Gustafsson. So, I mean, Gustafsson, I don't know what he could have done on that goal. I don't see that being his fault. In game one, I mean, they're not fronting players and things like that. And that's an area where the Wild have been really, really good. So this has just been a weird series because they were much better at even strength yesterday, but yet, you look at things. I just watched the game again, actually, and it is really, interesting to me how Colorado is almost beating the Wild at its own game. Like they have just been way more physical. Mm-hmm. Their skilled players have been way more physical. And they are going after the Wild skilled players. Boldy, Quinn Hughes, Kaprizov, these guys have been hit more than we've ever seen them hit. In a series, and it's their Nathan McKinnon's the world that are doing it. So right now, the bottom six of the Wild, not only are they getting outscored in the series, but they're just not, really doing or able to get to the type of game that they were able to get to Dallas. And it's two different styles of hockey. I mean, if you look at all the 5-on-5 goals against in this series, they've all been rush chances and things like that. So it just doesn't allow you to really, hammer guys. So they've got to, get in on the forecheck and start punishing some of these defensemen and some of these forwards. And right now they haven't been able to do it. And we'll see if that changes on home ice.
Well, what you're describing is what great teams do, right? They take the initiative. They even take away a perceived strength from the other team if they're capable of doing it. That puts the other team on the defensive. And that's the way it's looked through the first two games.
Yeah, and look, Nathan McKinnon, I said this on my colleague's podcast today. Like, I was thinking about this on the drive home from the airport this morning. Like, if there's ever a debate on who you would rather start a team between Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid, it's Nathan McKinnon all day long for me. I've felt that for years, and it's just been reaffirmed this series. He will do anything to win, anything. And he's built like a linebacker. He'll just skate right through you. He doesn't care who it is. He's just, he's got all the tools in the tool bag, and he's the one sort of leading the charge there. And that's why they're 6-0 in the playoffs. And it really just feels, that Colorado, because they had a week off, had a lot of time to prepare for the Wild, figure out ways to negate, a lot of their strengths, where the Wild, maybe because of the short turnaround, it just feels like they just showed up for the second round. And I do think these 3 days need to be really well thought out and used by the coaches to just, one, have really player touch-ups with a lot of guys that are struggling in this series, but really look at what they're seeing on video and try to figure out ways to, slow Colorado down. Because last night they did a much better job. It was more of a 50-50 game at even strength. But, Gus gives up a horrific third goal that cost them the game, essentially, when you consider it was the winning goal. And their special teams was, again, failed. And so they've got to figure it out.
Did you get out of town ahead of the blizzard? How'd that end up going?
Yeah, I mean, it was snowing badly when we woke up this morning, but it was, to me, it wasn't, it was really funny. I didn't realize this. I was talking to a Delta agent in Denver airport. It's really like their first storm in Denver all year, and who would have thought it happened on May 6th? But it wasn't bad. We got de-iced for a while, and I don't know what happened after I took off, but it was really nasty yesterday going to the game and going back. It was just like a little snow, and going to the airport, it was the roads were fine.
So the evidence that was revealed to you and your spidey senses this morning from Heinze on the goaltender decision for Game 3 was what?
I just think that even yesterday they probably planned on going, even if he won, going back to Wallstedt in Game 3. I just think that they felt like he was playing a lot of hockey. He gave 8 goals in that Game 1. And he wasn't very good. Now, the team wasn't very good at 5-on-5. But look, that's, as I said to you a couple of days ago, that 7th and 8th goals were just egregious. It just cannot happen, and whether or not the coaches were rattled also that Colorado essentially said that they had to tell, and whether they did or not, they did score 5 goals from the exact same spot, essentially. I think that probably made the decision a little easier. But look, the Wild, they're down 3-0. They're down 4-2. They take a 5-4 lead. The game's tied a minute later. Then first couple of minutes of the third period, they're down 6-5. They're still in the game. And then he gives up a terrible goal to Kadri for the 7-5 goal. And then, Zuccarello scores with 4 minutes left. That's plenty of time, the way that Wedgwood was playing and the way that game was going, that you just felt like the Wild are 100% going to tie it. And a minute later, he gives up a goal to Makar from the same spot again. And so I just think that they looked at it and just said, you know what, let's give Wallstedt a little bit of a time, a little bit of a breather here. Because even yesterday in the news conference, John Hines was pointing out, reminding reporters or almost educating reporters maybe from Denver or nationally that didn't follow all year this year, is that they, for a large part of the season, went with strict rotation, even to the point that 4 or 5 times a goaltender had a shutout and they didn't come back with them the next game, which is abnormal. So it was almost, to me, like he was just almost without saying it, saying we're just giving Wallstedt the game off here. He's going to have this game off, 3 days off, and we'll come back with him in Game 3. But again, I just think that Gus wasn't put into the best position to succeed. I don't know if that was communicated. Also, what my theory is, if it's true, to Wallstedt, because he looked really pissed off in the morning when we were in the locker room. I mean, looks could kill you when you looked at him. And then after the game last night, Gustafsson was in just a weird state that we've seen him in for now a month or so. I mean, I remember telling you about his demeanor after the St. Louis game, almost defiant. Then after the Dallas game, he was more, morose. And last night he just looked like he was really ticked off, and obviously I think probably realizing that might be his last start for a while too. So it's 2 weird situations with their goaltending right now. And because we've seen this before with just weird decisions that they've made in the playoffs, to me, that's what became the story of the game, win or lose yesterday. If they won, it would have been, what a heck of a decision. But when you make this decision and he gives up 2 goals on 2 shots, and the second shot comes 8-9 minutes into the game, so he's not getting peppered. It just wasn't the perfect way to start a hockey game by any stretch. And then they get themselves back in the game, and he gives up just a backbreaking 3rd goal. So that to me is why the story was it was today.
No, the story is inescapable. It absolutely has to be a significant part of the story either way, for all the obvious reasons. I've got a bevy of texts that have come in just in the last 10 minutes saying they're mad at you for not identifying the number one enemy that the Wild are dealing with, the officiating. That we got cheap-shotted, and the refs didn't do anything about it, and we're not getting a fair share of the calls. It's an old refrain, especially popular in this town. Sometimes has some legitimacy, sometimes it's delusion, but do you want to address those folks who are saying that we're not even getting close to the officiating we deserve?
Yeah, I mean, look, the way their power play is going, I don't know how many more power plays you want, especially when they've been so much better at even strength. I don't disagree that yesterday the officiating, I thought was off balance. But the Wild got a gift of a power play on the Brock Nelson trip of Quinn Hughes. He just checked him off the puck. But you're right. I mean, Boldy was boarded, but that game was over when that happened, so it's not like they were getting back in the game if they called it. Boldy was sucker punched, in a situation where that probably should have been a 4-on-4, or at a minimum, or at a maximum, a wild power play. There have been high sticks and things like that. I mean, things are missed all the time. What I don't like, and Mike Ruff talked about it on X today, is that it seems to be an epidemic in today's game where players, if the stick comes even close to them, they just shoot their head back like they've been shot. And maybe that's what, the Wild need to start doing. Michael McCarron basically said that after the game yesterday. The Trenyan, look, you could say Nicholas Waugh embellished that, but it was a stupid penalty to Yakov Trenyan, and it put them behind the 8 ball right away. I mean, he comes into the zone. He's a third, fourth liner, and he just starts trying to make a skilled play and pulls up at the blue line instead of just getting the puck deep. And 10 seconds later, he takes an offensive zone high sticking penalty. Good call or not, that's on him. The Tarasenko one's a legit call, whether Kadri embellished it or not. He swung a stick and got him in the face. So, look, there's going to be calls missed either way. I feel like I have been trying to tone it down on X both series because it just seems to it just seems to fan the flames. One side thinks you're homers, the other side thinks you're almost with the team. And then there are the Wild fans that if you bring out officiating, they call you homers too. So I've been trying to, act more professionally like an adult on X, and maybe sometimes I'm not doing it. The fans that are diehards justice enough by pointing it out, but I'm just trying to take it easy on X. Let's put it that way. Well, but I see what they're saying. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not here to say that some of this isn't true. But there's just too much other meat on the bone, right? That is
exactly. I mean,
performance.
They're not losing this series because of officiating. They're losing this series because their penalty kill sucks and their power play sucks. That's why they're losing this series so far. Yeah. That could change, though. I covered 2014. I came back from Denver when they were down 2-0, thinking the series was over, and the Wild wound up winning 2 at home. And then losing a game 5 in Denver, coming back and winning a huge game 6, and then winning in Denver in game 7. So I've seen the Wild rally back from 2-0 down before against the Avalanche. So I don't think the series is over. This is a very different Avalanche team, though. I mean, Nathan McKinnon was a rookie back then, didn't have a point in St. Paul in that series. He is now a superstar, the best player in the National Hockey League. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. So this is a very different team. But I do think that if the Wild, maybe Eriksson Ek can play on Saturday, if they can get him back, even if it's at 60% or 50%, that's probably a huge upgrade to what they have right now. So we'll see. But they've got to be better. And if they don't fix their special teams, they're not going to steal this series the way that they did Dallas, because Dallas is just a different type of team.
Is there a decent possibility that Eriksson Ek could be available Saturday?
So what the Wild were definitely hoping was that these 3 days off, or really 5 or 6, if you consider that he got hurt last Thursday it was, I believe it was. So it'll be 9 days off that there would be a way that he would be able to play. He does have a significant injury. The question is pain tolerance and if he can play through it. But he is hurt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Jonas Brodin, I hear worse things on. I don't think there's a way that he's going to play. I don't know what the Wild will announce. They're totally off today. We'll see if my gut says that John might even give them off tomorrow. We haven't got word yet. But that Hines would be available tomorrow. But the way it is with injuries in the playoffs, I don't think we'll get a lot of information. But I don't think Brodin's close to returning. I think Eriksson Ek, and we've seen it before, is going to try to gut it out, and we'll see if, one, if he can, and two, what that means, because we've seen him try to play on a broken leg before, and I still remember 2023. We watched him for a week do stops and starts and all this stuff, and then he finally, goes on the ice in one shift. Couldn't do it and had to leave the game. So even if he plays on Saturday, I want to see if he actually plays on Saturday, if you know what I mean.
You're pretty good at reading the room. You're around these guys a lot, and you've gotten to know them very well. What sense did you get in the locker room after the game? Not what they necessarily said, but body language, etc., regarding, how discouraged the room seemed to be.
Yeah, it was unbelievably quiet in that room last night. Like really quiet. Like not even talking. Like there's a curtain essentially where the changing room is to the showers, and I didn't even hear players talking in there. It was just Spurgeon was really just down in the dumps. I think overall by his play as well, because he and Jake Middleton are really having a tough series that John Hines is going to have to figure out, because it's not sustainable what they're doing right now. So my guess is Damon Hunt's probably going to play with Spurgeon, or he might have to go with the option that nobody wants them to see and maybe split up Faber and Hughes and try to even out the blue line that way. But it was just really quiet. Like, Boldy just seemed down. McCarron, like it was just a frustrated down in the dumps locker room. Now that could very easily change. Like I think these 3 days, the schedule was odd to begin with, but I think these 3 days could do them wonder. Get some energy, get some rest and recovery, maybe heal some wounded bodies, and just come out in front of a jacked up Grand Casino Arena and try to just win a game and then worry about game 4 the next game. So, but to me, it wasn't like this frustration like the series is over. It was more like, I think just a down in the dumps that they lost a second playoff game in the fashion they did.
Yeah, and the other factor that probably needs to be acknowledged here every once in a while is Colorado. They're good. They're very good. They're championship level.
They are, and what I was thinking coming into the series that LA really didn't challenge them, and the Wild were coming in off a high from the Dallas series. So I thought the first 2 games were going to look quite different than it did, and I think I was just discounting how good that team is. Look, I have said all along going into this second round that I thought whether it was Dallas and Colorado or Minnesota or Colorado, that the Stanley Cup winner could be playing in this round. So, I think the Wild are a really, really good team, but I think they're up against a really, really elite team right now. That is so much deeper than I thought. Like, I did not realize that their blue line on the second and third pairs were as good as they are. And they're playing without Josh Manson right now as well. Brent Burns at 41 years old is still kicking and playing well. Sam Malinsky looks like he's going to be an absolute stud. And this is an undrafted kid from Lakeville. And then obviously Makar and Devon Taves has been sensational, but their third and fourth lines in the series, they've been fast. They've been good. They've created chances. So they're just a really, really good team. They're not like the last couple of years. The reason why Colorado hasn't been able to advance is they felt like they were really top heavy, but the Brock Nelson trade did wonders for their second line. And then at the deadline, Chris McFarland, who I'm really, really close with, their general manager, he made a couple really swift moves. I mean, getting Nazem Kadri in here, Nicholas Waugh, who I didn't think a lot of, when he was in Vegas. He has been unbelievably good here so far in the playoffs. And even Blankenberg, the kid that came over from Nashville, that was just sort of a depth piece that only played like 8 or 9 games, maybe a dozen games in the regular season after the trade. He, with Josh Manson being hurt, he's come into the series and scored a big goal. So they are a good team. So the Wild just need to, get back on their horse here, figure out some things with the special teams. I think, John will have last change. Maybe he can get Boldy and Kaprizov away from some of these, tight checking guys. But, the Eriksson injury and the Brodin injury have loomed large so far in this round. I mean, Ek does everything for them. Danilo Uros going to be a good player. He's not Joel Eriksson Ek, and clearly Matt Boldy's been affected by that. But the Jonas Brodin injury is just, the numbers say it all. Like in the first round, he and Spurgeon were on the ice for 2 goals against at 5-on-5.
Wow.
Spurgeon has now been on for 8 of 12 non-empty net goals in the series, and Jake Middleton 9 of 12 and non-empty net goals in the series. So, that is one thing that, John Hines is going to need to sit down with both these guys during these 3 days and maybe consider changing his D pairs, whether it's elevating a Damon Hunt or, as I said, maybe breaking up Hughes and Faber and maybe play Hughes with Spurgeon and Faber with Middleton.
Thank you, Russo. We will chat soon.
Yep, see ya. Take care.
Michael Russo, Russo Radio, with a solid half hour of hockey discussion. When you think Puckhead, in all sincerity, on this show, is there any other name that comes to mind than Special K. You can hear it in that laughter. Can you not? Does that laughter not say puckhead? Lifelong puckhead?
I think that was a live listen-in when they said, the Wild are on another power play. Let's see if they can get a goal.
Well, that too. Bonus bucks?
Oh, good call. It is. The Fan and BigDeck.com. They would love to help you with bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. It's Wednesday, 5 o'clock. Deposit is the keyword. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword deposit.
Kessler and Ode to a Dead Guy. That's next.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler. Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler.
And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own
Pat Kessler.
Political Wonk.
I feel like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's
Pat Kessler.
with Dan Barrero on The Fan. It's time for Ode to a Dead Guy.
Kessler is in the room, and he is very much alive. But we are going to early chat about the news breaking on Ted Turner, who has died at the age of, I believe it was 87 years old. It was first announced, I believe, by CNN. Which, of course, is his creation, right? It makes
that's good. Break the news.
Sense. So, I think it's possible that the younger members of our audience probably have heard the name, but he's been out of pocket for a while, so they might not understand the significance of the name. If you're talking to a group of people who, and maybe it's not just age, for whatever reason, who don't completely understand why as much media attention has been devoted today to this huge news, what would you say to them? How would you attempt to sort of capture, in your mind at least, what Ted Turner, what that name represents, including, of course, his influence?
He was an iconic media pioneer. Everything you do today to consume news began with Ted Turner. The way we have news today is Ted Turner. He was also a philanthropist. You'll be happy to know he was quite a swordsman. He was a champion sailor.
Correct.
He was a sports team owner, and everything he did in the media has changed the way we look at media. Now, there was a time, you kids go look it up, there was a time where the news was delivered to you. That's how we lived. You and I both came up in the business where in the morning there would be a newspaper thrown onto your porch, delivered to you. That's how you got your news in the morning. On television, you had to be at home and have your butt in the chair at 5:30.
Yes.
So you could watch the CBS Evening News or any one of the evening news programs. Think about it. The news programs, the network news programs at the time, had more than 50 million people watching.
It's astonishing when you think about it.
Think about that. Yeah. So we all had a common experience with news. Ted Turner turned that upside down and inside out. He was very brash, a loudmouth. They called him the mouth of the South. Heavy drinker, was always in trouble, said things that were not good that he would be canceled for today, then comes out and apologizes. And on top of everything, marries the most beautiful actress in the world, Jane Fonda. I mean, this guy led a life. But let me talk about just a little bit how this changed us. You remember the Iraq War, 1980. Now, remember, we were in the news business. We had typewriters. We didn't have computers. We didn't have satellite phones. We didn't have anything. And he figured out a way to have live programming all around the world at one time with satellites. This was revolutionary. He bought a tiny television station in Atlanta, and then he bought the Atlanta Braves. And this was called the Superstation, wasn't it? I think that's what it was.
Correct.
And so he broadcast the Atlanta Braves games and then turned that into an international network, the cable news network. Everybody made fun of it. They called it was CNN, Chicken Little News, Chicken Noodle News, Chicken Noodle News.
Right.
Yeah. And this guy has just changed everything. He decided that we had to have history as it happens, news as it happened. He created the 24-hour news service so you could tune in at any time. He started the CNN headline news. TMC.
Turner Classic Movies, TCM.
TCM.
Yeah.
Turner Classic Movies. The Cartoon Network started that. It's just incredible what the dude did.
There were once upon a time in America on cable around the country, two so-called independent local superstations. One was his in Atlanta. The other was WGN in Chicago. There's a reason why one of them has become historic, and the other is it's a nice footnote. I grew up with it, and I loved having access to WGN, traveling around the country, living elsewhere, and you could still get Cubs games, etc. The difference was his vision. And I was struck today by one of the early press conference announcements where he is unveiling his vision of this concept of a 24-hour news station with bureaus all across the world, the whole bit. And what struck me is there's a bunch of chairs in front of him, and there were people sitting in maybe half of them. It wasn't even a full press conference. At the time, there may have been people curious and maybe even thinking, well, this could be interesting. But they had no concept of what he was introducing, because then it wasn't momentous. It had no gravity then because it didn't exist. And you think of that now, you say, well, every press conference he would have done having to do with that network, it would have been overflow. Then there were about 9 people in the chairs. He's talking to like less than a dozen people.
This is a loudmouth investor who's lost money, won money, earned money, all of that. And this is a concept people could not get their heads around. And then the Iraq War hit. Then we had the Iraq War of Desert Freedom, Operation Desert Freedom, George H.W. Bush.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was the first time, that you could turn on the television and have live war coverage in Baghdad while the bombs are coming down around you. That was unbelievable. George H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, said at the time that he learned more from CNN than he did from the CIA, because that's where people were getting their information. He said once, and I thought this was really interesting, that he would turn the channel on, and there was Dan Rather on CBS and talking about the war. Then he'd turn on ABC, Peter Jennings, he's there talking about the war. And I don't remember who the NBC anchor was, John Chancellor, let's say, talking about the war. You turn on CNN, that's the war.
Yeah.
There's the war. So that was a very, very...
Well, what was the name of the hotel? Bernie Shaw was in the hotel, one of the hotels.
In the hotel as
the bombing's going on. And they're even making they know exactly what they're bombing, and they also know, well, we ain't going to get close to that hotel because this is how what we're attempting to do is getting out, and people on the ground, in this case CNN, are having a chance to cover it.
Yeah, they were in tremendous danger while these bombs were coming down. But we had the first precision bombs at the time.
Yes.
But again, this is not like Vietnam. It's not like local television or network television where you record a story, take it to the station, edit it, put it together, and put it on a few hours later or the next day. You just didn't have that. So among all of the things that he did, he started, we're in the middle of a tremendous basketball postseason right now. He started the NBA on TNT. First he starts TNT, and then he gets the NBA on TNT. So he was a visionary in that way. And again, as I say, very controversial. He was a conservative guy who kind of confounded the critics. Very conservative guy who, at the same time, was interested in the United Nations and world peace and the environment.
The Goodwill Games.
All of that.
That was his deal, the USA versus Soviet Union, which was all about that, too. It goes back to, again, what now seems obvious. 24-hour news, a news network that's on all the time. It sounds like no big deal now. But that's what visionaries do, is they conceive of stuff that the rest of us are just not, sharp enough to even think about. That's where, in this case, his mind went. And as you say, he revolutionized, to that extent, the news business, the broadcast news business. There's no way around it, no other way to put it. And it may seem the obvious now, but it wasn't then because it didn't exist then.
And we grew up, those of us in the business and a lot of our listeners, you grow up with seeing the Berlin Wall come down. Yeah. The Cold War is ending. The space shuttle blows up on its ascent into orbit. Those were things that were covered by CNN that the other networks could not really do. Very, very competitive guy. As we mentioned, he was the captain of the America's Cup yacht race, and he won it. America's Cup. But he was so competitive that in the competition, his former wife was also a captain on another boat. And as the story goes, she was about to win, so he rammed the boat with her in it. Well, marriage didn't last.
Do you want to win?
No. Do you want to win or do you not want to win?
It's up to you. It's one way or the other. I mean, you got to have your priorities. All right, let's do this. We're a little behind. Let's take a quick pause. Some good texts are coming in on Ted Turner. There is a lot of news, more of the state variety we want to get into today as well. We'll keep you posted also on what Kenny, Charles, and the lads are saying. They've been analyzing Wolves-Spurs Game 2. A lot of interesting stuff there. So we'll mix and match with Kessler, and we'll get to a couple questions from the audience for Special K as well when we return.
When the pressure's on and the games mean more, John Krasinski delivers. Here are the Athletics Insider each week, all playoffs long, with Dan Barrero, thanks to RBC Wealth Management.
Mandela guy checks in with this. You've made a lot of my cogent but humor-free basketball analysis yesterday. But if anyone can understand it, it's a fellow Renaissance man like Kessler. We're not only highbrow, witty humor, we're also elite sports takes, art, entertainment, politics, theater, music, and deep intellect. But also, lots of veiled and unveiled penis jokes. Lots.
It's all about the wiener.
Don't drag me into this, Larry Mondello guy. It's perfect, and I agree with everything. And then he gets the last line in, which is brilliant.
You loved that, didn't you?
Brilliant.
All right. The other, I can't find the other text I was looking for. Wondering if you have any stories in the course of your daily media reporting career on CCO Channel 4. Anything akin to what I revealed, was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, that the strangest interview situation I can look back on and say, why did I agree to this, would be the time. Well, the subject that came up was Dick Motta, who used to coach the Bulls decades ago. Then he coached the Dallas Mavericks when I was there. New York Times just did this great, or Athletic just did a great piece just catching up with Motta. He's obviously now retired. I covered him when I was in Dallas when he was coaching the Mavericks. And for a story on one of his players, I'm running out of time. I got to get the story in. I'm already behind. He's in a hurry. So he says, all right, it was about Sam Perkins, the former North Carolina big man, who was a member of the team at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, all right, you're in a hurry, I'm in a hurry. Why don't you interview me while I shower? I interviewed Dick Motta while he took a shower.
Did you like it?
Tidy whities on. I was not comfortable with it, but I did get good answers. I mean, he gave thoughtful answers. The question is, in your career, can you reveal any time when you interviewed a politician while he or she, more likely he, I'm guessing, was naked?
I got to think about this. I had many telephone calls and interviews with politicians, and I'm guessing that
they could have been.
Many times their pants were off, whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
How about in person?
Okay, here's what I have to ask you before I. So when you interview the dude, in the shower, he's burr naked.
He's the shower. The water's coming down on him. He's washing up.
Are you facing him?
Yes.
And do you have a microphone? That time?
This was I might have had a tape recorder. And I had a notebook. This is the newspaper.
And does he point at you and say, hey, eyes up here. Eyes up here, Barrero.
I made that. Hey, I worked in locker rooms forever. You learned that before you learn anything else.
Of course.
You got to keep your eyes up high.
Well, I don't have anything quite that colorful. However, I did, in fact, follow Mark Dayton into a men's room and stood at the urinal next to him. And
did you attempt to interview him?
I did.
Yes.
I absolutely
While he was
did.
peeing?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
That's pretty close. Now, how did he handle that? Was he okay? Or was he like, what are you doing,
uncomfortable at first.
Yes.
A little awkward. And I will tell you that I stood back a little bit,
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes.
Well, usually there's like a partition between each urinal, so you at least have that going.
Not in those days.
No. Was this one of those like Williams Lorena barn or like troughs?
Yeah, it was almost like the old Metrodome, the troughs.
Yeah, the troughs. They were at Williams Arena too.
It was just a regular urinal.
Did you get a good answer from him?
I don't even remember because that wasn't what was memorable about the interview. The interview itself is what was memorable. So, yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You see people as they really are many, many times in this business. Mm-hmm. You do not really know the real person, and you don't get an opportunity to know who that is. But if you have those very human moments like you're describing and like I am, then sometimes that happens. We're talking about Ted Turner. He literally lived above the store. Ted Turner, who has passed away at 87, literally lived above the store, like in the old days where you get a radio repair shop and somebody lives above the grocery store, whatever. He lived above the store, and early on in CNN days in Atlanta, people would say that he would come down to the newsroom in his bathrobe and pajamas, and he would go to the company cafeteria to get food. So these are glimpses of humanity that we sometimes experience, but most of the time we treat everybody, politicians, athletes, business people, as if there's something different and something not normal, something different from human.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, the original spot for CNN and the Superstation was this antebellum-looking mansion. That was where now they eventually expanded. They got a whole campus now, but that's what it was. It was just a big old Southern mansion that he already owned or he bought. And, he also, by the way, was very much involved with wrestling, making Atlanta a national wrestling power.
I did not know that.
That was a big part of it.
Are we talking about real wrestling, like WWE?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not fake wrestling.
No.
But real wrestling. Abdullah the Butcher wrestling. Maniac Mark Lewin.
Okay, I did not know that. Then that is just one more thing.
Well, it goes on and on and on. Yeah. We'll give you one other example of that in a minute. Let's get one more quick break in, and then we'll get to some state news involving Klobuchar's presser the other day. Which we talked about, Guardsy and I, a little bit yesterday or the day before, one of the 2 days. And then the Shareen Gandhi news that's getting a lot of attention as well regarding, I think she was about to testify, right? The DHS.
Funny.
interviews, I should say.
Funny.
And hearings, and then suddenly the plug gets pulled. And
I'll make you an offer. You can't refuse.
That's basically it. More Kessler and who knows what else Ted Turner related. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open at 64686. Back in a minute. Kessie, let me give you the pièce de résistance when it pertains to Ted Turner.
Yes, sir.
Not that this is what he will forever be most remembered for, but it's one of those tantalizing subplots that you can't make up, and I think a lot of people today have forgotten. Early 1977, before San Francisco Giants outfielder Gary Matthews, before his contract had expired, Ted Turner, as the owner of the Atlanta Braves, reached an agreement with Matthews. The commissioner didn't like it, suspended him for a season for contract tampering. But he appealed it, fought the suspension in court while he remained in control of the team. And in May of that year, 1977, the Braves are fashioning a record on May 11 of 8-21. They end up during this stretch losing 16 games in a row. They had lost a doubleheader the day before. And that afternoon, Ted Turner, owner of the Atlanta Braves, told his manager, Dave Bristol, to go hit a bucket of balls, take the day off. Turner made himself
No, he didn't.
manager of the Atlanta Braves. Phil Niekro, the Hall of Fame pitcher, who I covered back in the day in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what he remembers. I just got through swinging in the cage, and I came out and I walked behind the batting cage for the next round, and Ted came out of the dugout. I looked at him, and jokingly I said, Ted, what spot you got to be hitting in today? And he said, hell, I don't know. You want to lead off? You want to hit second or third? We just lost 16 in a row. You've been around here long enough. Hit wherever you want to. So wearing number 27, Ted Turner, for one game, and by the way, they lost that game, managed the Atlanta Braves. And the league stepped in after the one game. You can see photos. He's got the uniform on, the whole bit.
He's got the uniform, yeah.
He's wearing the uniform in the dugout. Major League Baseball, again, Bowie Kuhn, his enemy at this point, says, come on, man. There's a rule that apparently bars anyone who owns stock in a team to manage said team. So he was barred from returning to the dugout the next game. So he managed, his all-time managerial record in Major League Baseball is 0-1, but Ted Turner managed a Major League Baseball game.
What a great story,
Yes.
and that he was the guy who would just say, I'm going to do it, stop me.
Exactly.
Try to stop me.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, that's how he lived his life. That's how he did his business, operated his businesses, and he was just supremely successful.
Amy Klobuchar holds a presser, kind of a weird time, as governor candidate, and she lays out a number of ideas she says will be her attempt to fight fraud. My guy, Andy Luger, is next to her, eventually testifies on her behalf. Mm-hmm. So the obvious objective was to separate herself from the governor in a number of ways having to do with surplus money, fraud, etc. So it was fairly expected that sooner or later she was going to have to do this. How effective was she in, quote-unquote, separating herself? How would you describe what you saw and heard?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm suspecting, although I haven't talked to her staff, that they held it on a Sunday because frequently she would do this on Sundays, have press conferences because she's on her way back to Washington. She's got her own job, and so she is running her Senate office and being a U.S. Senator and running for governor here. So she gives this press conference, which is her very first press conference as a candidate for governor. When did she jump in? Like beginning of April. Might have even been before that.
Before that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, so So it's the first press conference she has had as governor, and I think people rightfully say, well, where you been? Come on, let's hear something. But I thought she did exactly what she had to do. She acquitted herself just fine. She said that she was very concerned about the fraud. She gave a 20, 30, 40-point list of things she would do that Governor Walz did not do. And she said, in fact, that there are things that I would have treated differently than Governor Walz did, including a top-to-bottom audit of every state department in Minnesota. That's just one of them. Using money to have new computers, banning people, punishing them if you've been convicted of misusing money, you'll never get it again. Permitting reform, business portals for different programs, all the things you need to do that Governor Walz was very late to. They're doing stuff now, but only after an incredibly public national focus on fraud in Minnesota that I would say has tarnished the brand of the state of Minnesota. So she did what she had to do. And I know some Democrats, some traditional legacy Democrats probably have their undies in a bunch. The Republicans certainly do. But you got to do what you got to do. And she did it. And she is still the one and only leading candidate for governor for the Democrats.
Shireen Gandhi has been, I think, acting as temporary commissioner of DHS, right? The Department of Human Services for over a year. As I understand it, was it the day before? She's going to testify. The question is whether she's got the votes needed to be approved. The governor, the outgoing governor, the lame duck governor, pulls, basically demotes her, I guess, keeps her in the department, right? Changes her position. So read the tea leaves on this. Is this he knew she didn't have the votes? Is this something else at work? How do we translate what took place?
I'm very skeptical about everything that is happening here. The governor pulls her. Initially, we thought he had fired her or she was resigning. She resigned as commissioner and is now the deputy commissioner and is in effect running the Department of Human Services still.
Yes, right, still.
Someone else had been appointed. A new commissioner has been appointed, but he's out on medical leave.
Serious medical issues.
Serious stuff that he is, as Minnesota Public Radio
John
reports,
Conley's his name.
Yes, and he is going to be there out for at least a month with some serious health issues. So what makes this unusual is that this is not the first time that Governor Walz has done this, where he has let go or demoted or removed or pushed aside a top-level State Department commissioner, assistant commissioner, official, just as they were about to testify before the Minnesota legislature about issues on fraud. So I think this raises questions. Do you really want people to know what's going on with fraud? Yes, it's probably true. I think behind the scenes, not probably true, it is true that there were not enough Democratic votes on a Democratic-led committee to move on
for confirmation.
Yeah,
right.
To approve her confirmation. So rather than go through that embarrassment, the governor does this instead. But I think this, again, raises serious questions. When are we going to get somebody in a position of responsibility who is going to be accountable and take the questions, the tough questions about fraud in the state of Minnesota? And so far, we haven't seen it. And I think this is a blow for transparency.
Can't disagree with any of that. We are against the break. I assume tonight you'll be able to get an early nap in to then stay up for Wolves Spurs game 2.
You know, I have been struggling late at night. I've gotten the games in, but it's difficult the next morning, as you know. Here is the thing: the Wolves are so exciting right now. It's hard to put it down. It's hard to walk away from that. It's really, really fun basketball.
Have you given up? It sounds a little bit like the puckhead in you has given up on the Minnesota Wild, now down 0-2.
I still feel like they've got something in them, but this is a tough one.
They do?
I think so. The Av have they're a tough team. They've been our nemesis For years. Well, you caught it. Okay, good.
Well, no one can explain it. Everybody gets mad at me for bringing it up. Nobody's explained it yet.
Well, avalanche is a noun.
Yes.
And it's the Colorado Avalanche. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to call the plural of the avalanche the Avs, you can't do that.
But but my question is, why do you have to go to the plural at all? Why not just say, if you want to...
Because we don't call them the Wilds.
But the point is, the idea of using it is just to shorten the name.
This is true.
If you shorten the name, why not just shorten it to the Av?
I know.
How do you shorten the Wild? What would that be?
Well, you don't. Because
it's shortened enough. It's like
plural of wild is not wilds.
It's not?
I don't think so. The Wilds?
Well, that's a good question. Why don't we call them, as the team, the players, the Wilds?
Just what I'm saying. So
we're not consistent with it.
Absolutely
I think there needs to be a congressional investigation. Or at least one maybe from the hockey community.
Well, this is where we get the best information possible on sports is right here.
There's no question.
On those kinds of controversial questions.
That's it.
Yep.
And keep your drinks away from the equipment. That's all we ask.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Must have had a toxic spill.
Been there.
Overnight or some sort. Well, not overnight, because we don't have anybody in here overnight, I don't think.
Well, just stay away from the microwaves.
And stay away from the microwaves, for sure. Enjoy the Wolves tonight. We'll talk next week.
Cannot wait.
Thank
All right,
you.
go Wolves.
Special K, Pat Kessler. We'll come back and wrap up the program. Busy show tomorrow. We'll give you details next.
Show Wrap is presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Texter guy reminds us that in his view, Ted Turner was not a hardline Republican, very liberal, and even considered himself a closet socialist. I think the facts are he was all over the map. I like the way the New York Times put it. His politics were contradictory and controversial. Viewed himself as a righty in some ways, but he also befriended Fidel Castro, defended the repressive conduct of the communist Chinese government. And then he was involved he donated, what was the amount of money? He donated $1 billion to the United Nations as well. So that's not an organization that a lot of conservatives have looked up to historically, right? So I think it's nuanced on him politically. It's what made him such an interesting character and a maverick to a large degree, because he was also involved in some what would be classified as left-wing causes too. So it's a combo platter. I want to thank Kessler, who joined us in studio as always. Russo Radio at 5. Dr. Robbie Sika, former medical big shot for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Orono's own on his own ongoing relationship with Anthony Edwards and kind of his view on the Edwards recovery, what went into that, what goes into a lot of the injury issues when it comes to NBA players. He joined between 4 and 4:30. Also a guy who definitely had scar tissue from a lot of the more challenging days in Minnesota Timberwolves history. Alec Lewis on the Vikings GM search, not so much names, but more the philosophical questions about what you're looking for and how to go about getting it done. I think there's reason for some concern there, and that's also part of what we discussed between 3:30 and 4. Tonight, it's going to be another live and local night here on The Fan, correct?
Yes, after Fan on Demand on the air, Parker Fox from 7 to 8, leading into Wolves-Spurs Game 2.
There you go. So all that tonight on FM 100.3 The Fan. Tomorrow is what, Thursday?
It is.
Right now, what do we have locked in?
Right now, we have Dr. Dan's inbox.
We'll be adding.
We'll definitely be adding maybe a Krager's appearance. We kind of talked about that loosely.
If tomorrow's the day, yeah, we'll see if we can work that out with him.
Tom Crean will join on Friday at 3:15, previewing Game 3.
We're going to have to throw a bone to the hockey community. Otherwise, maybe we make them work for it. They're down 0-2. Win a game and get back to me in the semifinals.
And they don't play for a week and a half.
That's also true.
Yeah.
That's undeniable. Thank you for the text. Thank you for the phone calls, as always. We'll obviously review Game 2. Draymond Green with some interesting commentary on that series, which we will attempt to discuss tomorrow as well. Shaq was not on the crew. Your guy, Day-Day's back. And I don't know. I'm guessing Rudy got cheap shotted. What was the over-under? 5 times? We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.